Let's talk about crime in Louisiana's capital city and what our police department is doing about it with the commanding officer of the Baton Rouge Police Department. Roll it, Scott. Here we go, a little more than midway through the last month of the first quarter. So how are we doing as it relates to crime, and what's the overall thought about how last year went? Let's talk about that with Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul, who is our guest here on the show. Chief, how you doing, man? Good to see you again.
Good to see you. I'm doing okay, Clay.
Let's talk first about where we are right now and a couple stories that popped up. Obviously, recently you had a press conference at police headquarters about the case of the missing Georgia man who was found, and now the investigation is going on. At the press conference, there were a few things that you guys talked about. First of all, if people are wanting to know where that is, where is it? And I know there are a couple things you want to clear up about that presser.
Yeah, well, look, first I got to thank our business community for investing in cameras downtown. Our businesses down there.
Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Foundation.
Absolutely. Thanks to our foundation and the businesses as well for being responsible businesses. And what, we were able to track the movements. So we had kind of an idea. I think in a press conference, I believe one of my commanders stated that there was no foul play. What he was referring to, there was no foul play witnessed on the cameras. Okay. So of all the evidence that we have, camera evidence, there was no foul play observed there. Obviously, there are other parts of the investigation that we are still investigating. There have been an arrest made related to the use of a credit card. There's other investigative steps. One thing I want to remind the public, the police department does not give a cause of death. That is the coroner's responsibility. Only a preliminary report was released by the coroner's office as it relates to the cause of death. When that final report is submitted by the coroner, obviously that too will be part of our investigation. This is still an ongoing investigation. A lot of evidence has been collected, a lot of interviews, but a lot of cooperation from this community. I can tell you, we've received a lot of information related to that.
So on the screen, you're seeing, we're able to show the movements of this guy as he was here in Baton Rouge, moving downtown, and then where the body was found. I want to unpack a little bit of what you said. You are not confirming or ruling out foul play. You are just saying that there was no evidence of it captured on camera.
Well, look, obviously there are things under investigation on where the body was found, how the body was found. All of those things are still under investigation. What was the actual cause of death? We're waiting on that.
Coroner.
All of that is still under investigation. What we do know is that he walked around 0.8 miles, maybe 0.7 from Happy's to the bus station. We know that in the majority of that video evidence, he was walking alone. There are some parts in our investigation where he was seen with one person or another person. So a lot of interviews have been conducted, and our detectives have been working hard and still are. But I want to thank the community. When you look at the information that is coming in through Crime Stoppers, that have really helped us piece this together so we know exactly what happened. But we're waiting for that final report from the coroner's office as well.
So this story obviously got national attention because of the nature of it. These stories typically do, and people were talking about what does it say about Baton Rouge. About 90 seconds, we'll take a break and come back. But what do you want people who live in and around here to think about the city in the context of this story getting so much attention?
Well, it's unfortunate, Clay, when you look at not only what's happening here, but in the entire city of Baton Rouge, and what this monster called addiction
Yeah.
has done to many communities. I think there's a lot of trauma that we've seen in our communities when it comes to people using drugs to cope,
Yeah.
people using alcohol to cope. But when we look at crime, we always say we're dealing with the symptoms of crime when we get involved. Addressing those core issues when it relates to crime. What are those core issues? Education. We're seeing a lot of those young people and older people who are involved in violence did not receive the proper education. We know there's definitely a correlation there. Mental health, dealing with mental health issues.
Well, hang on, Chief. I want you to, I don't want to
Yep.
cut you. We got to take a quick commercial break, come back and continue with Chief Paul talking about crime in the city and what we can do to make it better. Back in just a moment. Back with Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul. You were talking going into break about some of the symptoms and things that create the crime that we see. You talked about education, you talked about mentorship, and I'd like you to continue.
Well, look, substance abuse. Substance abuse is one of them. Crime is a socioeconomic issue. But, you know, the challenges that I hear from my office is, you know, Clay, last year we arrested more than 4,000 felons, over 4,000 felons, took over 1,000 guns off the street, but yet we still deal with the same individuals over and over again. It's been one of our biggest challenges that I hear from my officers when we're investigating crimes and the suspects in a violent crime. We've arrested before, and that case where we arrested them has not resolved itself. So what does accountability look like?
What, you know, I know that you've had conversation with judges about that aspect of it because there are all these prongs involved in the process from arrest to prosecution. You know, police officers don't charge or prosecute these alleged perpetrators, but people are frustrated when you see a news story and then you hear in the story about this being the third, fourth, fifth arrest. And in some cases, this is the third, fourth, or fifth shooting. That's frustrating. So what do we do about that? I mean, people scream and name call, but I really want to talk about solutions. What do we do about that?
Well, we've had conversations. And look, it's not just the judges. Judges don't prosecute. It's the district attorney's office, it's the judges, it's law enforcement. I mean, there's a whole system. There's probation and parole. There's so many different entities that are involved in the whole criminal justice system. And I think we can agree there's room for improvement in all areas. So we've had those conversations. I'll tell you, it was to hear Judge Johnson actually talk about some things that they're doing to improve that system, to make sure that those individuals in that first appearance are being held more accountable.
Right.
Some efforts at the district attorney's office as well. We know he needs a lot more support so that we can make sure that his office is fully staffed and are receiving the appropriate amount of pay for the job that they're doing. So there's so many rooms for improvement, and even us with our recruitment and retention efforts. You know, our recruitment division is out there working. We have an academy right now. We know the more police officers we have on the street, the more we can help reduce crime. We know that presence does work. So there are a lot of things that are going on. And look, Clay, when you look at crime is a community issue. So when we look at programs, what we're doing with the foundation, how we're engaging the community and empowering the community through the Mayor's Safe, Hopeful, Healthy initiative, there is work being done. Last year, we finished the year with 23% reduction in homicides in the parish, 21 in the city, about 14% reduction in non-fatal shootings. And even this year, there's too many. One homicide is too many. All these shootings are too many. But as of today, we have around a 45% decrease in homicides for the year.
What do you attribute that to?
I think it's a combination. I think the community part is really, that's why, you know, when we hear initiatives with our business community, with the Safe BR, with all of the works that's going on, we always hear about the shootings. We don't hear about the ones that were prevented from the efforts of these street teams, from the efforts of community members getting involved, from the efforts of parents calling, getting involved when their children are involved in differences or beefs with other students, and giving us an opportunity to stop that violence from
You
occurring.
know, there's so many other areas I want to get into as it relates to that, but let's talk about this brawl that took place last year at the alternative school. Obviously, that was, the sheriff's office was in on that, and I think the department was in support, but we see more and more of those around the country, and with social media, they tend to become something that people look for now. So, what's your perspective on that, man? And I'm looking at this video on the screen here of some of that. What's your perspective of that?
It's very disappointing. Obviously, this is still an active investigation that the Sheriff Department and BRPD is involved in. But the behavior of those students go to school to learn. And I think about all of those good kids that were actually there to get an education. And now we have this distraction.
Right.
There has to be more accountability.
But what does that look like? When you say more accountability, I got about a minute before the break. What does that look like?
Well, let's start with the accountability I started before. When we arrest somebody, the accountability is that person going to jail, that person going to trial, and he's been held accountable for the charges that we charged him for the first time, not the second, third, and fourth time.
Right.
Let's address it the first time, and then with these repeat offenders, then we'll see crime going down even more than the reductions that we're seeing now. About a 31% reduction in non-fatal shooting incidents when it comes to what we're seeing there. I think we really have to have conversations with these parents and start looking at how we can hold parents accountable.
Because there were parents who showed up at the school.
Let me say this, and I'm trying to be very respectful, but what I saw on some of the video evidence, there's nothing right about that.
No.
And we can't have parents showing up at
To
schools
fight.
being part of the problem.
Crazy.
And
Well,
we have to deal.
We gotta take a
have to
break.
deal with the mental issues
Happen.
that these young people are dealing with.
We'll come back and pick that up with the chief at that point right there. I mean, we're talking about this brawl last week. I mean, look
Yeah.
at this again. Put that up, Scott. I'm just, I mean, it's the craziest thing. It started with a couple of young women, and then parents are showing up and fighting with other kids, fighting with law enforcement officers, and in this situation here and that's going to be a part of something else with what happened between the officer and that kid at some point. I know all that's under investigation, but commonly now, and I know you hear it all the time, people of a generation who remember a different level of respect between young people and adults, not just young people and police officers, but young people and adults. And look, there are no time machines, Chief. We can't go back to that period, but there has to be something we can do reasonably so that can help eliminate scenes like we just saw there.
So, when when we met, and thanks to the leadership of our mayor president, we brought all law enforcement agencies in the parish together, all our federal partners, FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, all the police departments, sheriff department, state police, district attorney, U.S. Attorney's Office last year, and we began to put together and we created what's called the East Baton Rouge Gun Violence Collaborative. I believe that some of those efforts, as we ended the year and looked at some of the progress, particularly in the Summer of Hope, and how we saw some reductions in violent crime, is one of the reasons we were able to recognize some reductions in violent crime when other cities similar to us were seeing increases. And that's because we have 4 goals. And let's talk about that, right? The first goal of the collaborative is to invest in community outreach, community engagement, and partnering and focusing on reducing gun violence through the intervention and prevention piece.
How?
Right?
What does that look like?
Sure. That's community street teams. That's the Baton Rouge Police Department providing data and statistics to service providers in very targeted areas.
Okay.
Overdoses, gang violence, domestic violence, and try to provide services to prevent the next crime from happening. That's the first goal. The second goal is also to enhance law enforcement partnership to investigate, prosecute, and reduce violence. That's our U.S. Attorney's Office and our District Attorney's Office focusing on those high repeat offenders, as well as high-risk individuals that we believe through efforts like Truce and our focused deterrence efforts that could potentially lead to violence encounters. Goal 3 is leveraging municipal services to address the conditions that contribute to crime. We're talking about those root cause issues, a lot of economic development that's going on throughout the city. And that 4th one is really on us, Clay, and that's looking at sound means and methods to identify and concentrate efforts on violent individuals, groups, and places to reduce gun violence. And we've been doing that thanks to our Information Services Department and Eric Romero and his leadership. With a lot of the data that we have, we're actually seeing incidents where police officers are in specific areas and they hear the gun violence and respond quickly. We've made arrests, we've identified suspects, but the culture of violence that we're experiencing is going to take time. I say this, Clay, the schools didn't teach me how to read. My mother taught me how to read. I learned that at home. When I went to school, I learned discipline from my family. I learned how to control my emotions through my family, through my uncles. There were consequences to my behavior. Okay? There is no fear of going to jail.
But see,
there is no fear of disappointing your family. But more importantly, there's no self-love or fear
but
of God.
I agree with everything you said. But how do you legislate the opposite of that? That's where I struggle with this. It's like you can invest in the communities, and we should. You can enforce the law to get but they're kids who fall in this weird gray area. That it's kind of hard, and that's the thing that I'll be honest, trying to rack my brain to figure that those kids, the ones that are on the bubble that we can save, the ones that are beyond saving, and then there's those ones that how can we get to them? That's what I'm thinking about now.
We got to catch them young, Clay. We can't give up on them. I tell you,
cannot give up on them.
We talk about the 6% in some of these. What happened the other day, and I'm mindful of, and I know you and I had the conversation of this, a program where young kids who were trying to get funding for businesses, and those presentations.
Can we come back and talk about that?
Yeah, because
last time you were here, you talked going right into commercial break, so I don't want you to do that this time. I'm looking out for you this time, my man.
Yes.
One more segment with Chief Paul. We'll talk about the Young Entrepreneurs Program that took place at LSU. It was fantastic. Back with Chief Paul, one more segment with him in just a moment. Would you be... So, Chief Paul did reference the Young Entrepreneur Academy event that took place last week. I got a chance to MC it. So you want to talk about impressive. It was over 4 hours, and I left there so inspired by it. One young man already has a power washing company. One young man came up with this concept for a knife that kids and adults can use. This one young man is trying to create these autonomous drones. One young lady came up with the concept for a vending machine for hair care products. She was so good at her pitch, she got $3,000. The kid who won has already been part of a Harvard research piece, came up with this concept for an anti-aging pill, got $5,000. And I was thinking, man, and you were making a point about that during the commercial break, is we should talk about those kids too.
And that's the thing, Clay, being blessed with this opportunity to be the chief. We participated in more than 500 community events in 2022. So our police officers are everywhere.
500?
That is correct, sir. Our police officers are everywhere. In so many programs, you need a whole 2-3 shows just to talk about all the programs. But we run across good kids who are doing it right. We run across, I see Sal, you go to some of these schools and you see the discipline. When you walk through the hallway and students stop and recite the motto to the school. Great kids with an amazing attitude in life. And we don't hear that enough. I share this with you, Clay. When it comes to athletics, right, there's a lot of signing, a lot of things that go on when athletes determine what college they want to go to. You know, what about those scholars, those young kids who are getting scholarships based on academics? So, you know, I would love to see a draft like that,
Like
and
a
we
draft
can
party
get
with the
together
kids.
a draft party with these kids.
You know
We have
what?
so many amazing kids that are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But
Most
we
of them are, actually.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and we forget to talk about that. So there's so many great things that are going on, and I understand there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yep.
I talk about three things. I talk about education. A lot of the young folks that we're seeing are not receiving a proper education. I talk
Or
about
they've quit on education.
that is correct.
Yeah.
Dropped out of high school. I never knew dropping out of high school was an option, by the way.
Man,
My
look.
mama didn't play that. But and we talk about the 3 C's: control, choices, and consequences. That these young folks don't really understand the importance of those 3 C's, and the 3 F's: faith and family first. I had an opportunity to sit down with the director of juvenile services, and she said that when young kids are going through the system, there's a form that they fill out, an intake form. And one of them, they ask what religion do they identify with. 85, 90% of that part of the form remains blank. So our young kids are not identifying with any religion. So there's not a fear of God. Those are things that I think we can.
There's not a
do much
fear
better.
of much with them. Look, I got 90 seconds left. What's your goal for this year?
You know, one of the things, violent crime, you know, I got a complaint today from one of our council persons as I was on my way here. We're going to continue with our recruitment and retention efforts to get more police officers on the job. So please visit us on our website, www.brpd.com, if you know someone who wants to serve. And we're going to continue working to get this crime down. I think the coordinated effort, what we're doing with these collaborations with the mayor's office, with the community, with the foundation, with our Safe BR initiative, where our business community are really getting involved right now.
Big things are coming.
And using their resources to help with a lot of the efforts that are going on. I'm excited about the future. I think we're going to continue to see violent crime, particularly gun violence and homicides, go down. And we're going to continue building on that, and we're going to continue working with this community to make Baton Rouge a safer place.
Chief's going to be back in a couple weeks with District Attorney Hiller Moore and a representative from the Sheriff's Office to talk about crime here. Next week, we're going to talk about the Governor's Prayer Breakfast and an organization in Baton Rouge that is reaching a great milestone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. You guys be safe.